When Alfred Phillips stands before the microphone, preparing to humiliate Brianna Washington one final time in front of the entire school, he has no idea that FBI agents have already surrounded the building. He has no idea that the black girl he has been torturing for months is actually the daughter of the most powerful man currently hunting his father. And when Brianna grabs that microphone to speak the words that will destroy the Phillips family forever, Alfred finally understands what monster he has awakened. But before we witness the moment, a racist bully gets completely crushed. Let's see what hell Brianna had to endure to get here. The morning everything begins. Brianna Washington sits on the back seat of the city bus, her hands trembling as she stares at the text message that arrived at 6 a.m. "Today you die, monkey." The number is blocked, but she knows exactly who sent it. She's been receiving these messages for weeks now, each one more violent than the last. Her father, Jerome, had warned her before she started at Whitmore Preparatory School, "If anything happens, call me immediately." But Brianna wants to prove she can handle this alone. She doesn't want to be the black girl who runs to daddy every time someone says something cruel. Through the bus window, she watches the landscape change from her modest neighborhood to the pristine gates of Whitmore Prep. The school sits on 200 acres of manicured grounds, its Gothic architecture designed to intimidate and impress. Confederate flags hang from several dormitory windows despite being technically banned. Portraits of Civil War generals line the main hallway, and the statue in the central courtyard commemorates the brave soldiers who died defending Southern heritage. This is where America's elite send their children, where future senators and CEOs learn that some people matter more than others. Brianna checks her phone one more time before stepping off the bus. She sees Alfred Phillips waiting by the main entrance with his crew, their expensive clothes and confident smirks marking them as the school's untouchable royalty. Alfred's father owns half the commercial real estate in the state. His mother sits on the school board, and his grandfather's name graces the library building. When Alfred decided that Brianna needed to learn her place, the entire system aligned to help him teach that lesson. If you're already hooked by this story of justice, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible tales where the underdog finally wins. The thanks button below helps me continue sharing these powerful stories that need to be heard. Now, let's see what happens when privilege meets its match. As Brianna approaches the main building, she notices something odd. A utility van marked City Water Repair is parked near the administrative offices, and two men in coveralls are working on pipes that look perfectly fine. One of them glances at her and speaks quietly into a radio device. She thinks nothing of it at the time, but that van contains sophisticated FBI surveillance equipment. And those repair workers are federal agents who have been watching Whitmore Prep for 6 months. The first confrontation happens at exactly 8:15 a.m. in the main hallway. Alfred Phillips doesn't simply accidentally bump into Brianna. He deliberately slams her against her locker with enough force to make her head snap back against the metal door. Books scatter across the marble floor as he leans in close, his breath reeking of expensive cologne and entitled rage. "Listen carefully, monkey," he says, using the slur loud enough for everyone to hear. Students freeze in the hallway, some pulling out phones to record, others quickly looking away. "Your kind doesn't belong here, and soon you won't belong anywhere." He holds up his phone, showing her a video that makes her blood freeze. It's footage of her house, her little brother playing in the front yard, her mother watering flowers in the garden. Brianna touches the back of her head and feels something warm and sticky. When she looks at her fingers, she sees blood from where her skull connected with the locker. "Please," she whispers, trying to de-escalate the situation. "I don't want any trouble." Alfred laughs, a sound like breaking glass. Too late for that. He shows her his hand, and she sees a heavy silver ring bearing the symbol of the White Heritage Society, a twisted cross surrounded by lightning bolts. Below the ring, partially hidden by his sleeve, she glimpses the edge of a tattoo that looks like a burning cross. Principal Louis Bell arrives just as Brianna's vision starts to blur from the head injury. But instead of addressing Alfred's violence, he focuses on the scattered books disrupting his pristine hallway. "Miss Washington, please collect your belongings more carefully," he says, stepping over the drops of blood as if they don't exist. "Mr. Phillips, I trust you can help your fellow student find her way to class." Alfred grins with the confidence of someone who has never faced consequences. "Of course, sir. I was just explaining to Brianna how much we value school traditions here." The other students begin to disperse, understanding that nothing will happen to Alfred Phillips because nothing ever does. In this world, money doesn't just buy silence, it buys blindness. As Brianna kneels to gather her books with shaking hands, she notices that someone has carved "Die N-word" into her locker door. The letters are fresh, still showing metal shavings from whatever sharp tool was used. This is only the beginning, and everyone knows it. The predators have tasted blood, and now they're hungry for more. The escalation begins immediately and follows a pattern that would make any FBI profiler recognize organized hate crimes. This isn't random teenage cruelty. This is systematic racial terrorism designed to break Brianna's spirit completely. By 9 a.m., Alfred's crew has launched what they call Operation Monkey Hunt, a coordinated campaign to drive her out of the school through increasingly violent means. Samuel Turner, Alfred's chief lieutenant, specializes in psychological warfare through imagery. He vandalizes Brianna's textbooks with drawings of lynching scenes, carefully crafted to look like historical illustrations, but featuring her face on the victim's body. Roy Evans handles digital harassment, creating dozens of fake social media accounts to flood Brianna's feeds with racial slurs and death threats. He also starts rumors about her family being involved in gang activity and drug dealing. Howard Collins serves as the group's documentarian, but his role is more sinister than simple bullying footage. He records every attack, every moment of Brianna's humiliation, and uploads the content to underground white supremacist websites, where it's viewed by thousands of hate crime enthusiasts across the country. What starts as school bullying becomes content creation for a national network of racial hatred. The cafeteria incident occurs on day 3 of the campaign. Brianna sits alone at a corner table, trying to eat lunch while ignoring the stares and whispers surrounding her. Alfred approaches with theatrical confidence, knowing that 60 students have their phones ready to capture whatever happens next. "Hey everyone," Alfred announces, his voice carrying across the silent cafeteria. "I want to share something interesting I learned in history class today." He pulls out a photograph, an actual historical image of a slave auction block, and holds it up for everyone to see. This is where Brianna's ancestors belonged, and honestly, I think some traditions deserve to come back. The room erupts in nervous laughter and uncomfortable shifting. Some students are genuinely horrified, but most are too afraid of becoming targets themselves to speak up. Alfred continues his performance, emboldened by the attention. "Maybe we should set up an auction right here in the cafeteria. I bet we could get good money for her." Brianna's hands shake so violently that she drops her sandwich. Tears start flowing despite her desperate attempts to stay strong. This isn't just bullying anymore. This is a recreation of historical trauma designed to inflict maximum psychological damage. Alfred has studied exactly how to weaponize America's darkest history against her. The locker room assault happens during fourth period gym class. Brianna changes quickly, trying to avoid attention, but Alfred's crew has planned this moment carefully. They wait until the coach leaves, then surround her with phone cameras rolling. Samuel Turner holds up a rope tied in a noose, while Roy Evans chants "strange fruit" in a mocking Southern accent. "This is your future, monkey," Howard Collins says while live streaming to his growing audience of hate crime enthusiasts. "We're going to make sure you understand exactly what happens to your kind when you forget your place." They don't actually touch her. They're too smart for that. But the threat is unmistakable, and the psychological impact is devastating. Brianna runs from the locker room with tears streaming down her face, but there's nowhere to go for help. Principal Bell is in a meeting with the Phillips family discussing their generous donation to the new gymnasium. The school counselor is mysteriously unavailable whenever racial incidents occur. The security guards have been instructed to look the other way when certain students are involved. By the end of the first week, Brianna's academic performance begins to collapse under the constant stress. She can't concentrate in class because she's always watching for the next attack. Her teachers notice her declining grades but attribute it to adjustment difficulties rather than systematic harassment. After all, if something serious was happening, surely someone would report it officially. The breaking point comes during American history class when they study the civil rights movement. Alfred raises his hand and asks the teacher, "Why did we even bother giving them rights if they were just going to complain about everything anyway?" His eyes lock on Brianna as he speaks, making sure she understands the personal nature of his question. The teacher, Mrs. Faith Griffin, is the only black faculty member at Whitmore Prep. She sees exactly what's happening, but faces her own constraints. "Mr. Phillips," she says carefully, "I think we should focus on the historical facts rather than personal opinions." But Alfred isn't finished with his performance. "I'm just saying," he continues, his voice growing louder and more aggressive, "maybe some people need to earn their place instead of just expecting handouts." The other students sit in uncomfortable silence, while Brianna stares at her desk, wishing she could disappear completely. That afternoon, Brianna discovers that someone has broken into her locker and left a welcome package, a collection of historical artifacts, including a miniature cotton plant, a toy slave ship, and a photograph of a lynching with her face photoshopped onto the victim's body. The message is clear. You are not safe here. You will never be safe here. And we will escalate this until you break completely. She carries the package to Principal Bell's office, hoping that physical evidence will finally force him to take action. But Bell examines the items with the expression of someone forced to deal with a minor inconvenience. "Miss Washington," he says with practiced condescension, "I understand you're having some adjustment difficulties, but these appear to be historical educational materials. Perhaps someone was trying to help you understand the curriculum better." The gaslighting is so blatant that Brianna actually laughs, a bitter, desperate sound that surprises them both. "Sir, that's a picture of my face on a lynching victim. How is that educational?" But Bell has already made his decision, and it has nothing to do with justice or student safety. "I think you may be misinterpreting someone's attempt to reach out," he says, sliding the evidence into his desk drawer where it will disappear forever. "Perhaps you should consider whether Whitmore Prep is the right fit for your particular needs." Walking home that day, Brianna notices the same black SUV that has been following her for the past week. It maintains a careful distance, but makes no attempt to hide its presence. The message is clear. We know where you live, we know your routine, and we can reach you any time we want. The psychological terrorism has expanded beyond school grounds. At home, She sits in her room, staring at her father's FBI badge displayed on her bookshelf. Jerome Washington has spent his entire career fighting hate crimes and racial terrorism, and his daughter is experiencing exactly what he's dedicated his life to stopping. But Brianna refuses to call him because admitting defeat feels like betraying everything she's tried to accomplish on her own. Instead, she cuts off her natural hair with kitchen scissors, thinking that maybe if she looks less threatening, the attacks will stop. She practices speaking in a softer voice, walking with smaller steps, making herself as invisible as possible. This is what systematic racism does. It doesn't just attack your body. It convinces you to attack yourself. The transformation begins when Mrs. Faith Griffin approaches Brianna after class with an expression of barely contained rage. "We need to talk," she says quietly, "and not here." They meet in Griffin's classroom after school, where the teacher locks the door and checks for listening devices before speaking. "Brianna," she begins, her voice tight with professional control, "I need you to know that what's happening to you is not random teenage cruelty. This is organized racial terrorism, and it's part of a much larger pattern." She opens her laptop and shows Brianna screenshots from white supremacist websites featuring her photos and personal information. "I don't understand," Brianna whispers, staring at hundreds of comments calling for her death. "How did they get all this information about me?" But Griffin's next revelation changes everything. "Because I'm not just a teacher, Brianna. I'm FBI agent Faith Griffin, and I've been working undercover here for 8 months investigating connections between this school and organized hate groups." She shows her federal badge, and suddenly everything makes sense. The awkward questions, the careful documentation, the way Griffin always seemed to know more than she was saying. "Your father didn't send you here blind," Griffin continues, revealing the carefully orchestrated nature of what Brianna thought was her independent decision. "Agent Washington has been tracking the White Heritage Society for 3 years, and all evidence pointed to this school as a recruitment and training center for the next generation of racial terrorists." The pieces fall into place with devastating clarity. Arthur Phillips, Alfred's father, isn't just a wealthy real estate developer. He's the regional commander of one of America's most dangerous hate organizations. Principal Bell isn't just corrupt. He's being paid to identify and target minority students for systematic harassment designed to drive them out of elite educational opportunities. "But why me?" Brianna asks, though she's beginning to understand the answer. "Why not just investigate without putting anyone at risk?" Griffin's expression grows grim. "Because we needed them to reveal their methods, their network, their plans. And unfortunately, that required giving them a target they couldn't resist. The daughter of the FBI agent they hate most." The realization hits Brianna like a physical blow. She's been used as bait in a federal investigation, and everyone knew it except her. The anger that floods through Brianna in that moment transforms her completely. Not anger at her father or Griffin or even the FBI. Anger at Alfred Phillips and every racist who thinks they can torture innocent people without consequences. "What do you need me to do?" she asks, her voice steady for the first time in weeks. Griffin smiles, recognizing the shift from victim to warrior. "We need you to call your father and tell him you're ready to stop pretending to be helpless. Because, Brianna, you were never helpless. You're the daughter of one of the most powerful law enforcement officers in the country. And it's time Alfred Phillips learned exactly what that means." That evening, Brianna makes the call that changes everything. "Dad," she says, when Jerome Washington answers on the first ring, "I'm ready to stop playing victim." The line goes quiet for a long moment. Then her father's voice comes through with barely contained fury and fierce pride. "I've been waiting for this call, baby girl. Tomorrow, everything changes." The next morning, as Alfred Phillips plans his next escalation in what he thinks is a one-sided game of racial terrorism, FBI surveillance teams are already moving into position. Technical specialists disguised as maintenance workers are installing recording equipment throughout Whitmore Prep, and federal prosecutors are preparing warrants that will destroy the Phillips family forever. Brianna walks into school with a new understanding of her power. She's not just a black girl trying to survive in a hostile environment. She's the key to a federal investigation that will expose a nationwide network of hate crimes and bring down some of the most dangerous racists in America. Alfred Phillips thinks he's hunting prey, but he's actually awakened a predator far more dangerous than he could imagine. The strategic planning phase begins immediately. Jerome Washington arrives at Whitmore Prep that afternoon in an unmarked federal vehicle accompanied by a team of agents who transform from utility workers into the coordination center for a complex federal operation. Their target isn't just Alfred Phillips, or even his father. It's the entire network of hate groups, corrupt officials, and institutional racism that has allowed this terrorism to flourish unchallenged. "Here's what we know," Jerome tells Brianna as they review surveillance footage in Agent Griffin's classroom. "The White Heritage Society has been using elite private schools across the South to identify and radicalize the children of wealthy families. They provide funding for schools that agree to maintain traditional values, which is code for institutional racism designed to drive out minority students. The scope of the conspiracy is staggering. Dozens of schools, hundreds of families, thousands of victims across multiple states. Brianna's case isn't isolated. It's part of a systematic campaign to maintain racial segregation in America's most prestigious educational institutions through terror and intimidation rather than legal barriers. "Your job," Griffin explains, showing Brianna a detailed tactical plan, "is to give them exactly what they want. A final, public confrontation where they reveal their true nature in front of cameras and witnesses. We need Alfred to escalate beyond the point where anyone can dismiss this as boys being boys or teenage pranks." The plan is elegant in its simplicity. Brianna will appear to be transferring schools, giving Alfred and his crew confidence to plan a farewell celebration that will expose their hate crimes to federal prosecutors. Hidden cameras will record everything while FBI agents position themselves to make arrests the moment violence occurs. But the real genius of the operation lies in its broader scope. While Alfred focuses on his final attack against Brianna, federal teams will simultaneously raid White Heritage Society locations across 12 states, arresting leadership and seizing evidence of a conspiracy that reaches into state governments, local police departments, and federal institutions. As Brianna prepares for the most dangerous performance of her life, she thinks about all the victims who came before her, students who were driven out of schools, workers fired from jobs, families terrorized out of neighborhoods by the same network she's about to help destroy. This isn't just about justice for her anymore. It's about breaking a system that has operated in shadows for generations. Alfred Phillips has no idea that his next move will be his last as a free person. He thinks he's about to celebrate victory over another inferior opponent. Instead, he's walking into a trap that will expose him as part of the largest hate crime prosecution in American history. The hunters are about to become the hunted, and Brianna Washington, the quiet black girl they thought they could terrorize into submission, is about to show them exactly what happens when you attack the daughter of justice itself. Looking at Brianna sitting alone in that classroom, planning the downfall of her tormentors while FBI agents coordinate around her, I have to ask, what would you have done in her situation? Would you have called for help earlier? Or would you have tried to handle it alone like she did? Comment below and let me know, because her next decision will determine whether justice finally wins or whether the hate groups claim another victim. The first victory comes faster than anyone expects. Samuel Turner, Alfred's chief psychological warfare specialist, makes the fatal mistake of underestimating how thoroughly the FBI has penetrated his digital communications. On Monday morning, Samuel receives what he thinks is an encrypted message from a White Heritage Society recruiter asking him to prove his commitment by confessing his crimes on video. What Samuel doesn't realize is that Agent Griffin has been monitoring all communications between Whitmore prep students and known hate group members. The recruiter is actually an FBI cyber specialist, and Samuel's eager confession becomes a federal prosecutor's dream evidence package. Within hours, FBI agents surround Samuel's house during breakfast, finding an arsenal of weapons, hate crime planning materials, and detailed maps of minority neighborhoods marked for future operations. The arrest happens at school in front of 200 students. Federal agents walk into advanced placement history class, flash their badges, and cuff Samuel Turner while he sits at his desk. Samuel Turner, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit hate crimes, possession of materials to commit terrorist acts, and violation of federal civil rights statutes. The classroom erupts in shocked silence as their classmate is perp-walked through the hallway in handcuffs. Alfred watches from across the corridor, his confident smirk faltering for the first time. "This is just harassment," he tells his remaining crew, but doubt creeps into his voice. Samuel was supposed to be untouchable, protected by his family's political connections and legal team. If the FBI can take down Samuel Turner, maybe nobody is as safe as they thought. Roy Evans falls next, and his destruction is even more spectacular. The digital harassment specialist who flooded Brianna's social media with racist content discovers that every fake account he created has been traced back to his personal devices. But the real devastation comes when FBI cyber experts hack into Roy's computer and find his private files. Thousands of hate crime videos from across the country, detailed plans for school shootings targeting minority students, and communications with adult white supremacists who have been grooming him for years. The FBI doesn't just arrest Roy, they expose him publicly by releasing edited portions of his digital communications to major news networks. CNN runs a segment titled "The Making of a Teen Terrorist," featuring Roy's own words about his plans to cleanse America's schools of minority students. His college acceptance letters are immediately rescinded. His family's social media accounts are flooded with outrage, and his father's law practice loses 70% of its clients in 48 hours. Roy's public humiliation serves as a warning to other hate group recruits. This isn't just about individual consequences anymore. This is about destroying entire families who enable racial terrorism. The message spreads through white supremacist networks like wildfire. The FBI has declared war on organized racism, and they're winning. Howard Collins, the group's documentarian and live-streaming specialist, provides the most satisfying downfall of all. His obsession with recording every hate crime makes him the perfect target for a federal sting operation. Agent Griffin, using her teacher credentials, approaches Howard about documenting historical accuracy in his hate crime videos by adding more authentic period details. Eager to impress what he thinks is a sympathetic adult, Howard reveals everything. His connections to underground white supremacist websites, his profit-sharing agreements for hate crime content, his plans to expand operations to other schools. Most damaging of all, he admits to selling footage of Brianna's harassment to adult predators who specifically request content featuring black victims. When federal agents raid Howard's house, they find evidence linking him to a nationwide network of hate crime content creators who profit from racist violence. His arrest triggers a cascade of federal investigations that ultimately expose 43 individuals across 17 states. Howard Collins thought he was just bullying a black girl for entertainment. Instead, he becomes the key to dismantling America's largest online hate crime marketplace. With his core team destroyed, Alfred Phillips enters desperate mode. He contacts his father Arthur directly, breaking protocol by discussing White Heritage Society business over monitored phone lines. "Dad, we need backup," Alfred pleads during a call that FBI surveillance records in crystal clear audio. "They're picking us off one by one, and I think the black girl's family has connections." Arthur Phillips's response reveals the true scope of the conspiracy. "Son, this isn't about one black girl anymore. Our intelligence sources say the feds are planning a nationwide sweep against our organization. We need to accelerate our timeline and make an example that will send a message to every minority who thinks they can challenge us." The conversation that follows contains explicit plans for escalated violence, specific threats against Brianna's family, and coordination with adult hate group members to finish what the boys started. Every word is recorded, every plan documented, every conspiracy charge strengthened by Arthur Phillips's own admissions of guilt. Alfred's desperation leads to his most dangerous gambit. He announces plans for a traditional heritage celebration during the school's mandatory assembly on Friday morning. Principal Bell, deeper in Arthur Phillips's pocket than ever, approves the event despite knowing its true purpose: a public humiliation ritual designed to break Brianna's spirit completely while demonstrating White Heritage Society power to potential recruits nationwide. But Alfred makes a critical error. He underestimates how thoroughly federal agents have penetrated every level of the conspiracy. The heritage celebration becomes the perfect trap, allowing FBI teams to position surveillance equipment, coordinate arrest teams, and prepare for the largest hate crime bust in American history. Thursday night, as Alfred practices his speech in the mirror, a racist manifesto designed to destroy Brianna Washington in front of 500 witnesses, he has no idea that FBI tactical teams are reviewing architectural plans of Whitmore Prep, identifying every exit and entry point. Federal prosecutors are finalizing warrants for his arrest, his father's arrest, and the arrests of 46 co-conspirators across the White Heritage Society network. Brianna's near-defeat moment comes at 3 a.m. Friday morning, when Alfred's final psychological warfare tactic nearly breaks her resolve. Her phone buzzes with a video message showing deep-fake pornographic images of her face superimposed on explicit content, accompanied by a message promising to release the material publicly unless she transfers schools immediately. For 20 minutes, Brianna sits in her dark bedroom contemplating surrender. The weight of being used as federal bait, the months of systematic harassment, the knowledge that hundreds of hate group members across the country have seen her suffering. It all crashes down at once. She drafts a text to Agent Griffin. "I can't do this anymore. I want out." But before she can send the message, her phone rings. It's Agent Griffin calling from the FBI Coordination Center, where she's been working all night. "Brianna, I know you're scared, but I need you to see something." Griffin sends her a secure link to messages from victims across the country. Black students, Latino students, Jewish students, Muslim students, all inspired by news reports of her courage to come forward with their own stories of systematic harassment. "You're not just fighting for yourself anymore," Griffin explains. "You've become a symbol of resistance for every minority student who's been terrorized into silence. Tomorrow, when you face Alfred Phillips, you'll be fighting for all of them." The rally moment comes when Philip Wilson, Alfred's former crew member, arrives at Brianna's house at dawn with explosive information. Alfred isn't just planning to humiliate you, he reveals, his voice shaking with fear. He's planning actual violence. His father flew in 3 adult White Heritage Society members to handle crowd control if things get out of hand. Philip's revelation confirms federal intelligence reports. This isn't just a school bullying incident anymore. It's a planned hate crime involving multiple adults, weapons, and explicit intentions to cause serious physical harm. The FBI's carefully controlled operation suddenly becomes an emergency response to prevent potential loss of life. "Why are you telling me this?" Brianna asks, studying Philip's terrified expression. His answer reveals the true impact of her courage on even her former enemies. "Because watching you fight back made me realize what a coward I've been," Philip admits. "My little sister is starting high school next year, and she's adopted. She's Korean. If Alfred does this to you and gets away with it, what's he going to do to her?" The climactic confrontation begins at exactly 10 a.m., when Principal Bell calls the mandatory assembly. 500 students, faculty, and parents pack the auditorium, while FBI surveillance teams monitor from concealed positions. Alfred Phillips walks to the podium with the confidence of someone who believes he's about to achieve ultimate victory over his racial enemies. "Ladies and gentlemen," Alfred begins, his voice carrying across the silent auditorium, "today we celebrate the traditional values that make Whitmore Preparatory School a beacon of American excellence." His opening words seem innocuous, but Brianna recognizes the coded language that white supremacists use to signal their intentions to fellow believers. Alfred's speech quickly escalates into explicit racism. "For too long, we've allowed inferior cultures to contaminate our sacred institutions. Today, we restore proper order by showing everyone exactly what happens when certain people forget their place." He gestures toward Brianna, sitting in the front row as planned, and the audience realizes they're witnessing something far more sinister than a student presentation. "Brianna Washington," Alfred continues, his voice dripping with hatred, "represents everything that's wrong with modern America. The idea that some people deserve opportunities they haven't earned, respect they haven't commanded, and safety they don't deserve." The auditorium erupts in shocked murmurs as parents and faculty realize they're witnessing open racial harassment sanctioned by school administration. But Alfred isn't finished. Emboldened by months of unchallenged terrorism, he makes the fatal error of revealing his true nature completely. "Today, this monkey learns her place, and everyone here learns what happens when you challenge white supremacy in America." The moment those words leave his mouth, Brianna stands and walks calmly to the podium. The auditorium falls completely silent as she approaches the microphone with the confidence of someone who knows exactly what she's about to do. "My name is Brianna Washington," she begins, her voice clear and strong, "and I am the daughter of FBI Supervisory Special Agent Jerome Washington, who specializes in investigating organized hate crimes and racial terrorism." The auditorium explodes in stunned silence as the implications sink in. This isn't just a bullied student fighting back. This is a federal law enforcement operation reaching its conclusion. Alfred's face goes completely white as Brianna continues. "For the past 4 months, I have endured systematic racial harassment as part of an FBI investigation into the White Heritage Society and their recruitment operations in American schools. Every threat, every assault, every hate crime has been documented and will be presented to federal prosecutors." The sound of Alfred's world collapsing is almost audible. His confident smirk transforms into desperate panic as FBI agents begin moving toward the exits, preventing anyone from leaving. "You're lying!" he screams into his microphone, but his voice cracks with terror. "You're just a scholarship kid. You don't have that kind of power." Brianna produces her father's FBI badge and holds it up for the entire auditorium to see. "Agent Jerome Washington is currently arresting your father, Arthur Phillips, at your family home on charges of leading a terrorist organization. Principal Bell is about to be arrested for conspiracy to violate federal civil rights laws, and you, Alfred Phillips, are about to learn what federal hate crime charges look like." As if summoned by her words, FBI agents flood into the auditorium from every entrance. Agent Griffin removes her teacher disguise and displays her federal badge, while tactical teams secure all exits. Local news cameras, secretly positioned by federal media specialists, broadcast the entire confrontation live to regional television networks. Alfred makes one last desperate attempt to maintain control. "This is harassment. My family has lawyers. You can't do this to us." But his protests are drowned out by the sound of handcuffs clicking as federal agents place him under arrest for conspiracy to commit hate crimes, violation of civil rights under color of law, and terrorism charges that carry potential life sentences. The immediate aftermath is swift and decisive. Arthur Phillips is arrested at his mansion while attempting to destroy evidence of White Heritage Society operations, his computers and files seized before he can eliminate proof of the nationwide hate crime network. Principal Bell is perp-walked from his office in handcuffs, while local news cameras capture footage that will dominate regional headlines for months. But the real victory extends far beyond individual arrests. Within 72 hours, federal agents execute simultaneous raids across 12 states, dismantling the entire White Heritage Society network and arresting 47 individuals connected to organized racial terrorism. The investigation reveals connections to local police departments, state governments, and federal institutions that have been infiltrated by white supremacist ideology. Brianna's courage in enduring months of systematic harassment has provided federal prosecutors with the evidence needed to dismantle one of America's most dangerous hate organizations. Her case becomes the foundation for the largest civil rights prosecution since the 1960s, with defendants facing sentences ranging from 10 years to life in federal prison. 6 months later, Brianna Washington addresses the Congressional Committee on Civil Rights as the primary witness in hearings that lead to comprehensive hate crime legislation. Her testimony, broadcast nationally, inspires similar investigations in 34 states and results in the exposure of systematic racism in hundreds of institutions across America. Alfred Phillips begins serving a 25-year federal sentence in a maximum security prison where his white supremacist ideology makes him a target rather than a protector. His father, Arthur, receives life without parole for leading a terrorist organization, and their family fortune is seized to provide restitution for victims of White Heritage Society crimes. The Phillips family name becomes synonymous with the consequences of organized racism. Their story serves as a warning to other hate groups that federal law enforcement has declared total war on racial terrorism. But more importantly, Brianna's victory becomes a symbol of hope for every minority student who has ever been terrorized into silence. As Brianna walks across the stage at Harvard Law School graduation 3 years later, she thinks about all the victims whose stories she carries with her, past, present, and future. The quiet black girl who was supposed to be broken by systematic racism has instead broken the system that created her tormentors. Justice delayed became justice served, and America is safer because one teenager refused to accept that hate should win. The monsters who thought they were hunting prey discovered they had awakened something far more dangerous, the daughter of justice itself. The monsters who thought they were hunting prey discovered they had awakened something far more dangerous: the daughter of justice itself. And somewhere in America tonight, another Alfred Phillips is planning his first racist attack against another innocent student. He has no idea that Breonna Washington has trained a new generation of federal agents who specialize in hunting predators like him.